A lot of Miami Dolphins fans, including myself, have been asking, when are the Dolphins finally going to fire Mike McDaniel? Well, Ian Rapoport, lead NFL insider, shared a major update on the fact that he thinks changes are coming for the Dolphins and when that may actually be made. Buckle up. I got a lot to read because I thought it was very important for you guys to hear exactly verbatim what Ian Rapoport said in a minute 15 monologue video on Twitter. The Miami Dolphins are going to roll forward with what they have, hoping the results are different. I think one thing that the past week's events has showed us is that change is coming to the Dolphins. Obviously, McDaniel is someone that Stphen Ross really likes and respects. He supported him. He chose him. He has invested in him with a big-time contract extension. He does not want to fire him. The results, though, have to change. And I think because of the ugly losses, because of Tua Tagovailoa throwing teammates under the bus and then recanting and walking all of that back, because of that, it has forced the entire nation to look at the Miami Dolphins and say, what are they gonna do? So the Dolphins are going to get back to work this week with the hopes that the results are different. But I can pretty confidently say change is coming to the organization. It's just a matter of how and when. He reiterated, can pretty confidently say change is coming to the organization. It's just a matter of how and when. I wanted to reiterate that last point. If the lead NFL insider, Ian Rapoport, is saying that he feels pretty confident in saying change is coming to the organization in the form of Chris Grier being gone, Mike McDaniel being gone, them moving off of Tua Tagovailoa, that is something the Dolphins fans should be fired up and excited about. Because we have seen over the last 4 years, there have been a lot of highs, there have been a lot of lows with Mike McDaniel and Tua. But it's become abundantly clear that those two, quarterback head coach combination, are not going to provide sustained success for the Dolphins when it comes to winning in January and February, which is all that matters in the National Football League. You want to win some cute, meaningless football games in October and September? Yeah, Tua and Mike McDaniel might be able to do that with a better roster on the defensive side and in the trenches. But winning meaningful games, they are not the men for the job. And I reacted to this quote in monologue Ian Rapoport gave on Twitter, which is why you need to follow me, because you get more on the Dolphins on social media outside of these YouTube shows. So go follow me at Nic_Rohloff, 40 away from 2,500. So Ian Rapoport clearly alluded to Mike McDaniel getting fired at some point, saying it's an inevitable factor, but it's just a matter of when, not if. And it feels like Chris Grier will ultimately be there as well. And maybe Grier actually isn't fired. Maybe he has just transitioned to a different role inside the organization where he doesn't have any power in roster decisions or draft choices, and they hire a different GM. But I have a question to ask because some Dolphins fans have asked it to me as well as on social media to the general public. Is it actually best to let Mike McDaniel finish out the entire year coaching the Miami Dolphins just so you can say with 100% confidence nothing will change and the team will continue to stink and lose games and ensure Miami a better draft pick? Right now, as we enter NFL Week 8, the Dolphins have the second overall pick in the NFL draft. The only team ahead of them is the one win Miami has against the New York Jets, who are currently 0-7. Miami, by the way, plays the Jets again, obviously, plays the Saints, and plays the Ravens next week as well on Thursday Night Football. So the Dolphins could screw themselves out of a good draft pick by winning, bing, 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 or could really help themselves by losing, bing, bing, bing. Like, I'm not saying it's the best idea. I am just telling you the Dolphins may actually say, this is a lost season. We're going to let McDaniel finish out the year. We're going to let Grier finish out the year. We're going to let them be the tank commander for the rest of the season to ensure the Dolphins finish with a top 2, top 3 pick in the NFL draft, to where maybe some real changes occur in January and then the changes in the roster are made in a positive way because Miami has a top 3 draft pick in late April. And I mentioned the top 5 draft order and the fact that Miami plays 3 of the 5 teams in the top 5 outside of themselves. And it's a 2-week stretch in late November, early December. Coming out of the bye week, Miami plays week 11 in Madrid against the Commanders. Bye week, then they host the New Orleans Saints in week 13. Then they go on the road in the first weekend of December to play the New York Jets. Who knows if the Jets will still be winless at that point? Who knows if Tyrod Taylor or Justin Fields will be quarterback? But these 2 games right here very well may depend and really impact where the Dolphins are selecting in late April. They lose those 2 games, heck, they could be picking number 1. They win those 2 games, they could be picking 4 or 5. That's why it might actually be better to let Mike McDaniel finish out the season, because the incompetence he displays in terms of preparation, in terms of leading and having his team ready to play, he will continue to screw all of that up. So if he continues to be employed and screws all of that up like he has been over the last 2 years, well, Miami might finish 1-16, 2-15, and have the number 1 pick in the draft, being able to choose whatever prospect, whatever quarterback they may like to potentially turn around this franchise. I'm not saying it's the best thing to do, but it's certainly something that should be considered and be talked about as the best option for the Miami Dolphins. So before I give you my official opinion on the matter, let me know, should the Dolphins keep Mike McDaniel to let him be the tank commander? Pin comment, Y for yes or N for no. Now, even though I just laid out why it might actually be the best thing, I think it is better and more important for the organization to fire him right now, because the Dolphins organization has been the laughingstock of the NFL over the past month and a half, and they have not won a playoff game in 25 years. This organization, this ownership group who took over full-time in 2009, needs to start preaching accountability. And it starts with the owner. If the owner holds the GM and head coach accountable, then the rest of the organization, the front office, the players, they know accountability matters. I think the lack of accountability by the owner, by the GM, by the head coach has seeped into the players like a virus, like a sickness, like a cancer, which has allowed this locker room to not bring the right mindset in a week in, week out basis. And it's led to poor play. It has. Stphen Ross needs to show the NFL world that the dysfunction, the incompetence, and the lack of attention to detail, it won't be tolerated in Miami. It won't. He needs to show that. And it starts by firing the 2 losers at GM and head coach. So, let's take a look at some replacements for Mike McDaniel. We've talked a lot about some head coach candidates, but I want to look at 2 individually. But first, I want to show you my top 5 list. This will be an ever-changing list here at the channel. But my top 5 head coach candidates, as we're currently sitting for the Dolphins, are as follows. It's Robert Saleh, the current 49ers defensive coordinator, former Jets head coach. Mike McCarthy, the ex-Packers and Dallas Cowboys head coach. And then 3 younger defensive coordinators. Jesse Minter for the Chargers, Chris Shula for the Rams, and Anthony Campanile for the Jaguars, who actually, by the way, was on the Dolphins coaching staff in the past. And out of those 5 guys, I want to make this clear as well. My number 1 candidate, without a shadow of doubt, is Robert Saleh, because I thought he got the raw end of the stick in New York. I thought most of the reasons why it went south in New York was because of the middling owner, Woody Johnson, and the GM, Joe Douglas. I thought they're to blame for the issues there. I think Saleh is a hell of a coach. He goes right back to San Francisco as the defensive coordinator, and that unit's balling on a budget with all of those injuries. I mean, did you see what they did to the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football without Fred Warner, without Nick Bosa, playing a bunch of 6th and 7th round picks? It's been phenomenal to witness. But I want to highlight Jesse Minter, the coordinator for the Chargers, and Chris Shula, DC, for the Rams. Why? Because a Dolphins fan asked Benjamin Albright, who makes the most sense for you when it comes to the future Dolphins head coaching opening, he responded Jesse Minter, the Chargers defensive coordinator, but also mentioned Chris Shula as someone who should get a look. Now, should he be trusted 100%? No, I don't think so whatsoever. But I wanted to use this opportunity to talk about the two. So let's start with the defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter, in Los Angeles. He is 42 years old. He got his first gig in coaching with the University of Notre Dame in 2006. He was on the Ravens coaching staff from 2017 to 2020, went to Vanderbilt, and then ultimately went to Michigan to be the defensive coordinator for Jim Harbaugh. Then makes the jump from Michigan to the Los Angeles Chargers. So he's been under the Harbaughs almost basically every year from 2017 to 2024, 2025, with one stop in between, and then recently joined Jim Harbaugh again, leading the Michigan Wolverines to a national championship and posting a really solid defense in Los Angeles the past couple of years. More coming on Minter, but stay locked in. All the latest rumors on the Dolphins coaching stuff, whether it's McDaniel, Anthony Weaver. Subscribe now to get the latest updates on the Miami Dolphins. But the fact that he is Jim Harbaugh's guy makes me really excited about potentially hiring him, because Jim Harbaugh, I think, is one of the best coaches in football, regardless of NFL or college football. And we've seen him go from the college world to the NFL world and be successful multiple times, right? Went from Stanford to the 49ers, was terrific. Gets back into coaching at Michigan, took a little bit, but then goes national championship. Jumps to the NFL once again and has been good. Led the Chargers to the playoffs, and they might make it again. So to be underneath him for essentially the last 4 seasons, but underneath the other more successful Harbaugh and John Harbaugh in the NFL makes me very intrigued with all of the knowledge that he has and the way he could bring in what they did in the past. Because the Harbaugh tree has been pretty solid. Also comes from the Andy Reid tree, if you didn't know that, because that's where John Harbaugh kind of originated, under Andy Reid. And the defense in LA with the Chargers has been solid under Minter. Certainly better a year ago, where they were first in points per game, fourth and third down percentage, and eighth in EPA per play. It's been a little bit of a down season for Minter, but let's not act like the Chargers defense is bad. Some of these numbers are inflated because they got absolutely torched by the Indianapolis Colts this past week. By fun fact, we talked a lot about the Colts and how that was a bad loss to start the year. You know, through 7 weeks of the NFL season, they have the most efficient offense in NFL history. NFL history. If you look at points per drive, the Colts have the highest points per drive in the NFL ever, besting the 2007 New England Patriots. Certainly a sidebar worth noting. That Colts team has been clicking at another level. But I do think Stphen Ross will heavily consider Jesse Minter and really like him. Why? The Michigan connection. Stphen Ross is a Michigan alum, and he is a major Michigan donor and fan. He went on record and said in 2022 he would not be hiring Jim Harbaugh because he wouldn't want to steal him away from the University of Michigan. He admitted he'd rather see Michigan have the right man at the head coaching position than his own team he owns. How ridiculous is that? So, yeah, he's going to favor a coach that helped bring a championship to his alum. It's unbelievable, but it's something we have to mention. We're going to get to Chris Shula here in a second, but Dolphins Salute to Service Gear on sale right now, chatsports.com/Dolphins Salute. I know not everyone wants to get Dolphins gear right now. I'm certainly not buying any, but these are pretty sweet. Grab yours right now. Salute to Service Gear for the month of November. Chatsports.com/Dolphins Salute. Hats, hoodies, mini helmets, shirts, all in the links and description of today's video. All right, let's look at Chris Shula now. He is younger than Jesse Minter, 39. Began coaching in 2010. Was on the Ball State staff. Kind of an electric start to a career. He has been on Sean McVay's coaching staff since 2017. But he's been on the opposite side of the ball. He has been as a defensive guy the entire time. And you hear the name Shula, you think Don Shula. Yeah, he is related, the grandson of the legendary Dolphins head coach. And he is rising up the ranks in the NFL right now. Even Peter Schrager, who most people respect, and I certainly do as a analyst and ball knower, pointed out Chris Shula. Well, what was that? Just 4 or 5 days ago on October 19th. When coaching buzz picks up here, Shula's going to be in a lot of conversations. He's very young, and he might be passed over this cycle, but I think Miami should give him a hard look. He's been under Sean McVay for a ton of time and been friends with him for a long time. McVay, arguably the best or top 3 coach in the NFL right now. So, yeah, I'd like to take someone from that tree. You could pair up Chris Shula with someone from that Rams organization as your new GM. I think that would be one heck of a start to a rebuild. In LA, Shula's done a tremendous job defensively. First year as a defensive coordinator was 2024. They were just below average, but I expect a young defensive coordinator, a 38-year-old defensive coordinator for the first time in the NFL. I expect some struggles, but now he's 39, year 2 in that system as the play caller, and look at what the Rams defense has done this season. A particularly low and young defense as well, with a lot of youth on that defensive line and secondary. They're second points per game, 5th and 3rd down, 4th in EPA per play, and 12th in yard per game. He's been phenomenal for the Los Angeles Rams. And I saw Omar Kelly talk about this, and I know some people, it's a legit concern. You hear the name Shula, and they're like, this man only got out into his position and it has the success and was able to become a head coach is because of his last name, because of Don Shula. Nepotism. It's not. He was flagged as a coach early in his career. He got his first break actually by Craig Aukerman at the college level, and he has just risen up the ranks every year of his career. He just wasn't gifted anything. He has worked hard for everything that he's gotten and would be an excellent hire. He's a hard-nosed guy, and the only concern I have is him being the Dolphins head coach, and then you have the Shula comparisons, and it's a little bit too much pressure on the young man. That's my only concern. But let's say the Dolphins went out and hired one of Minter or Shula to replace Mike McDaniel. Who would and should it be? Would you rather go Jesse Minter or would you rather go Chris Shula? I think I do lean slightly for Jesse Minter because I do actually have a legit concern about Shula not being able to handle the pressure of living up to his grandfather, Don Shula, because that is someone Miami Dolphins fans obviously love, one of the more beloved people in Dolphins history. So it's that's a concern to live up to that. But Jesse Minter is also a hell of a coach too. And I think it's actually more likely the Dolphins hire him than Chris Shula because of that Michigan connection. But I do want to make it abundantly clear, I would still rather go with experience. I would rather hire Mike McCarthy or Robert Saleh to take over as Dolphins head coach over Minter or Shula. I think Saleh I like a little bit more because he's a motivator. He's a high-energy guy. Mike McCarthy isn't. But McCarthy, you can't argue with the success he's had and sustained success with the Packers. And he had good success in Dallas as well. Just was unable to get the job done. He would be able to stabilize a culture here in Miami, which is certainly necessary. That'll do it for today's episode. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you're still watching and aren't subscribed, change that because you obviously like what we're doing. And when the Dolphins have news, we have you covered. So subscribe.